The power shift in Cebu. The transition controversy between Governor Pam Baricuatro and former Governor Gwen Garcia. In-depth story on politics, legacy, and power struggle in the Queen City of the Sao. In the heat of the Philippine summer, as the political climate simmered with anticipation and anxiety, a historical shift occurred in Cebu, a province long considered the heart of the Visayas. The 2025 gubernatorial elections delivered a surprising verdict. Pamela Pam Baricuatro, a former flight attendant and humanitarian, unseated the formidable Gwen Garcia, a political titan who had held power for decades. But what should have been a smooth and democratic transition of power became a stage for controversy, resistance, and allegations. Behind the ceremonial handshakes and press statements, a deep rift was forming, a struggle between the old guard and a rising force of reform. This is the story of the transition controversy between Governor Pam Baricuatro and former Governor Gwen Garcia, an unfolding political drama that reflected deeper tensions in Cebu's governance, legacy politics, and the fight for accountability. A stunning upset at the polls. Few political analysts predicted Gwen Garcia's defeat. Known for her charisma, strongman leadership, influential Dorano clan, whose power had waned in recent years but was evidently not extinguished. With her humanitarian background through the Simply Share Foundation and a campaign rooted in transparency, social services, and youth empowerment, Baricuatro managed to galvanize support from both progressive groups and traditional political factions. When the results came in, Cebu was stunned. Baricuatro had won convincingly, especially in urban areas and among first-time voters. It was a people-powered win, one that signaled a yearning for change. But it also set the stage for confrontation. The beginning of the rift. Disputed results. Almost immediately after the elections, Gwen Garcia's camp began raising concerns. Allegations of vote irregularities, vote buying, and manipulated transmission of results surfaced. While the Commission on Elections (COMELEC) declared the results legitimate, Garcia's supporters filed an electoral protest with the Commission Bank, citing questionable clusters and unaccounted ballots. Although Baricuatro was proclaimed and recognized by the Department of the Interior and Local Government (DLG) as the duly elected governor, the shadow of the protest loomed large. Garcia, who had not publicly conceded, maintained that the will of the Cebuanos had been misrepresented. This refusal to concede set the tone for what would become a rocky transition. Delayed turnover and the battle for documents. Baricuatro's team expected a formal turnover process, a standard operating procedure where the outgoing governor's office submits all necessary documents, budget briefs, and transition reports. But by mid-June 2025, just weeks before Baricuatro's scheduled assumption, no such materials were forthcoming. Repeated requests from Baricuatro's transition team went unanswered. The Garcia camp, citing the ongoing electoral protest, claimed that any premature handover might compromise the case's neutrality, and that they had no legal obligation to turn over sensitive documents until the protest was resolved. This delay raised red flags. According to Vice Governor-elect Ramon Ace Dorano, who was tapped as provincial administrator by Baricuatro, the refusal to cooperate with the transition process is not just undemocratic, it's dangerous. The province can't afford administrative limbo. Baricuatro echoed this sentiment, saying, "We don't want a power struggle. We just want clarity, transparency, and continuity of services for the people of Cebu." The missing documents and allegations of concealment. By July 1, when Pam Baricuatro officially took office, she did so without a complete briefing from her predecessor. What followed was a discovery that shocked many. Initial audits conducted by Baricuatro's team allegedly revealed incomplete records, inconsistent budget allocations, and missing documentation for several programs and special projects. Millions in provincial funds could not be immediately accounted for, prompting suspicions of financial mismanagement during the last months of Garcia's term. Particularly alarming were the allocations for the Pasigarbo Sugbo and Suroy-Suroy Sugbo programs, cultural and tourism events that consumed large chunks of the provincial budget. Baricuatro, who vowed to shift focus from extravagant events to healthcare and education, called for a full audit. In a fiery press conference, Baricuatro declared, "The people of Cebu deserve to know where their money went. We will investigate all irregularities and hold those accountable who betrayed public trust." This statement was met with fierce resistance from Garcia loyalists, who called it a political witch hunt. Public backlash and political division. Cebuano society became deeply divided. On one side were those who saw Baricuatro as a reformist breath of fresh air, finally willing to challenge the dynasty and promote inclusivity, health, and education. On the other were loyalists to Garcia, who defended her legacy and accused Baricuatro of disrespect and vendetta politics. Pro-Garcia rallies were held outside the capital, while Baricuatro's supporters organized community events promoting transparency and civic participation. Online, the debate intensified. Hashtags like #SupportPamCebu clashed with #GarciaCebu, showing just how emotionally and politically charged the situation had become. Executive orders and reversal of Garcia-era policies. One of Baricuatro's first acts in office was to issue a dozen executive orders aimed at realigning the province's priorities. Among the most controversial was the abolition of funding for Pasigarbo sa Sugbo and Suroy-Suroy Sugbo, two of Garcia's most beloved legacy programs. Instead, Baricuatro redirected funds to bolster public hospitals, mobile clinics for far-flung barangays, and a youth civic engagement program called Kabaton sa Capitolio. Garcia, in a rare post-term public statement, criticized the move as an attack on Cebuano culture and tourism. She warned that Baricuatro's administration risked losing what made Cebu vibrant, proud, and united. Baricuatro countered, "Culture is not performance. Culture is in the hearts of the people, in the way we care for each other, especially the poor and the sick. Let's stop equating culture with pageantry." The transition controversy had now evolved into a full-blown policy war. Legal battles and future implications. As of July 2025, the electoral protest filed by Garcia remains unresolved. Meanwhile, Baricuatro's legal team is exploring possible graft charges against several officials from Garcia's last term, particularly related to procurement and event spending. Political watchers speculate that Garcia's protest is not just about reclaiming the post, but protecting her legacy and shielding herself from potential prosecution. At the same time, Baricuatro's aggressive push for audits and policy shifts is seen by some as a gamble. If she fails to deliver tangible improvements within her first 100 days, the controversy might haunt her administration and erode her base. A clash beyond personalities. The transition controversy between Pam Baricuatro and Gwen Garcia is more than a quarrel between two women in politics. It is the symptom of a deeper tension between old and new, dynastic rule and grassroots democracy, performance politics and service delivery. Cebu now stands at a crossroads. On one path is the legacy of a long-entrenched political force that values spectacle, charisma, and continuity. On the other is a vision of reform, led by a woman who defied the odds and now seeks to reorient government toward transparency and human-centered development. Whether Baricuatro succeeds in dismantling what she calls political excesses, or whether Garcia makes a comeback in the next electoral cycle remains to be seen. But what is certain is this: Cebuano politics has changed forever, and the people are watching more closely than ever before.